They were.
Part 2 of the videos on the Naples arrangement. In the first video, we did the first Naples arrangement, which people aren't very aware of. And this video, we're actually doing the Naples arrangement, which people are aware of because it's sort of structured in a quite a simple, sort of straightforward way. This video will make far more sense if you watch the first video. It'll help you a lot. So this should be a fair. We can whiz through this one because we've already talked about most of it. So this is a more sort of the first Naples arrangement was in terms of points, and then lines, and then triangles, and then matter. All these ideas of geometry.
This is more up your street, actually. Yeah?
Is it?
It is with the numbers. Eh?
Oh yeah, the Kabbalism. Yes, right. Okay.
Yeah, that's it.
Yes. Well, we're Bart's moving on ahead as usual, so we better stick to. So what he says at the start here to the Naples arrangement, he says, in the Kabbalistic system, the original idea is 0, which appears under 3 forms, N, Sof, and Sof. And there are parallels with other systems, in particular the Chinese one, the Tao, becomes manifested little by little through the Te. Or we can talk about the god of destruction and annihilation, Shiva, in the Hindu system, which becomes manifested through the infinite energy of Shakti. So we have Shiva and Shakti, basically, the yin and the yang, the masculine and the feminine, which are united. The system begins, therefore, with Ain, nothing, En Sof, without limit, and En Sof, or the limitless light. Now, I don't really, the transliterations don't really do much for me. I don't know about you, Bart.
No way.
They're a bit inadequate, aren't they?
Yeah, but yeah, they're vague, eh? But they do that on purpose, I suppose.
Yeah. It's to keep the students clueless, basically. No change there. Now we go into the Naples arrangement. Okay.
Hey, is these 3 veils? Is that the 3 circles around the Fool?
Yeah. Yes, you could do that as well. There's lots of ways. It's the Trinity, God the Father and the Holy Ghost, all that stuff. And of course, you can do male, female, man and woman creates a son, and then a daughter. So the Naples arrangements doesn't start with 0, it starts with 61. And the reason it starts with 61 is because the Kabbalistic, the Gematria value, there isn't a 0 in the Hebrew system.
Isn't there?
There is not.
Ah.
So we have a construct where we use the letter O, AIN, which has the value of 61. So AIN is nothingness. AIN also means the eye, and it's to do with the devil card. So we've got onto another tarot card. There we are. We're making it relevant. The devil card, which is kind of a bit of a piss take if you think about it, because it's basically the most divine thing is the devil. So that's the thing about these things. They're not, this morality thing that we apply to things, the devil is evil and stuff, doesn't exist in these absolute systems.
Well, they say Ein and Ein Sof, or how do you say, if you imagine, if you start thinking on a bigger level, on the widest level, there is no good and evil, eh?
No, there isn't, no. They're moralistic concepts that we apply to stuff. What you see as evil may not be as evil to me, and vice versa. So that's a relative thing that we're into there. That's morality and a whole load of other stuff. Then we would have to lie down for a very long time.
That's politics. That's dangerous territory politics.
So I missed out a paragraph here. So he says, one may now proceed to imagine any point in this light to select it for observation, because now I can see it because there's light. Before there wasn't. The fact of doing so makes it positive. This gives the number. So we got, so 0 is now positive. So it's given the number 1, which is called Kether, the crown. Then it says the other numbers arise by reason of the necessity of thought, as explained in the following table. So this is, so he says thoughts, and we had thoughts as position 7, didn't we? 8 is thoughts, is Mercury, Chit. Yes, Mars. Yes.
By creating positive, because it's strange how he explicitly mentions doing so makes it positive.
Yes.
Because if the moment he makes positive, he also makes negative.
So there's, yes, so you have this duality thing going on as well, don't you?
Yes.
They exist together. There's a simultaneity thing going on as well. So you could sort of see it as a tarot card has a good and negative meanings. That'd be one way of doing things. So we're in Kether, and he's talking about the conscious, the necessity of thoughts, which means that we've gone to have a necessity of thought as opposed to thinking and just thoughts. Means we've gone through Tipareth. Okay, so now we're going back from Tipareth back up to the top in Kether. Assuming, of course, that all of these things exist. Well, they obviously don't exist yet because we haven't defined them, we haven't described them. So that's the next stage. So we still have to start with the triplicity of 0. So the first thing is, so we talked about 61 as IN nothing, and it's the letter O. And the Kabbalistic Crowley's version of things, O is the vagina, the Yoni as well. So we're all in the... He said they go positive. The first thing you have, negative. Just keep on your toes. So 61 equals 0. He's not doing a mathematical equation there. He's just sort of saying 61. So, because if you have 0, you can't multiply or do anything or divide with a 0. You can only do it with a positive number, because imaginary numbers didn't exist at that time, even though we have been doing imaginary stuff all this way through. So then that's the N. So then the second line is Ein Sof, and AY, Aleph Yod Nun is 61, and you can do a whole kind of thing with Aleph Yod Nun in here. Aleph is 1, Yod is 10, and Nun is the waters and the fish and things like this. So we have the Fool, the Hermit, and
Death.
The Death, which is a version of IAO, basically. We're back into there. So you can see IAO, our favorite god, is there right at this top. So the next line, 61 plus 146 equals 0 has undefined space. So 61 equals 0.
That's not right.
0.
61 plus.
Space. Now there is space, and we don't know what kind of space it is, but it exists.
That's not right. 61 plus 146 equals 207.
Yes.
It's not 0.
It's 207. Yes. But but he's doing that to cover up the next bit, because basically N Sof Or is 414, which is a powerful number in itself, to do with Azot and all these things. 4 and 4. Let's see, number 4 and 4 is it is Azot, yes. And there's the Liber 414, the Art Magica. It's all about magic and all these things as well too. So it's a powerful number in itself. Okay. So we can do a lot with 414. But the point is, you essentially now have two 207s. Okay? Because Or, AVR, is light, is 207. N Sof is 61 plus 146, which is also 207. Okay? So we have two lights. And this is what you actually have in the Book of Genesis, don't you? There are two lights. And they define them as the sun and the moon, which is one way of doing it, and you can do it in other ways as well. So we're back into a duality of light. So we have undefined space, Ein Sof, and Ein Sof or equals 0 as basis of possible vibration. Could be vibrating, but now we have a polarity again between these 207 lights. Are we following there, Bart?
Oh yes, very much into it.
Questions will be asked later. So now we've finally come to the point again, which we had in this first video. It took a while to get to the point, didn't it? Quite literally. So this is more of a summary of the first version. So now the points. So we have the gematria at the top there. So we're at 414, and so 1 appears in all of those numbers except 207. Okay, so 207 comes to 9. So that's so we're into Yesod again, aren't we? Basically.
Yod, hermit, no.
Huh? We can do 9 plus 1 is 10, which is Yod as well, you see. So you can mess around with this stuff in a lot of ways. So now we have the point. Because he also, by observing it, it is positive. So he says the point, positive yet indefinable. Well, well, that's an interesting concept there. So we have positive, negative and positive, but we can't define what they are.
I don't really see the point then.
Oh, that was a joke there, Bart. Yes. So this is so when we're reading 2 cards, pairing of cards, that's where we're at. So then it says the point, position 2, so we're now into Hukmah, is distinguishable from one other. So there has to be 2, which is 2. And then the point is defined. So what we have, you have positive yet indefinable. The second one is distinguishable from one another. So we can say that there is something different about them, even though they are the same. And in point 3, which is Bina, it's defined by the relation to 2 others, which is the triangle, basically, which is where we're at. And that's to do with, we're in Bina then. Then we have the abyss between ideal and actual. So this is kind of where you can see the idea of there being 2 Naples arrangements. The first one was the ideal one, and this second one is the actual one. It's the real one. So the abyss. So a lot of the Book of Thoth is actually written from the point of view of beyond the abyss, which is why it doesn't make sense half the time. Most people only work below the abyss. Even a lot of magicians, they're still below the abyss. They haven't, because they're too scared to face Choronzon. They're wusses, basically. So number 4 is Hesed. The point, now it's defined by 3 coordinates. So those 3 coordinates that we couldn't really define with each other, they can actually, because there's 3 of them, they can now define themselves with the point to create matter. So below the abyss is matter, above the abyss is the ideal thing that's going on there. And then he brings in number 5, motion, which is Geburah, time, Hey the womb, for only through motion and in time can events occur. So yes, so you have to make the point again that time is a construct, it's not a relative thing. It's very hard to define time. I think these days they do it by the number of atoms excited in a certain way, aren't they, that go through a certain thing for these quantum clocks and all that kind of stuff they put into space and stuff. The interesting thing is if you don't actually measure time, then you can't do GPS and everything else. So it's important to define time, but it's not a fundamental like other forces.
And so if you look at this arrangement in the matter of trinities, then the second trinity actually is the geometry. And so the third one then, so that's actually matter and time.
Yeah.
I'm just thinking on how like in this case now, 5 time could relate to, which is
well, matter is something that it's. I mean, even if it just appears, there's a concept of time going on there because it wasn't, and then it was. So is fundamental to the whole system, basically.
Mm.
Philosophers, I'm sure they can correct us on all this stuff. So number 6, the point, which is Tipareth, the center of the Kabbalistic Tree of Life, which is the point of consciousness. It says the point now self-conscious, because all that other stuff wasn't, because able to define itself in terms of above. So he's able to, he knows this stuff and he's able to work and deal with those things. As tarot readers, we start from the top and work down. If you join a mystery school, you start at the bottom and work up and struggle. We just use gravity to sort of flow through. So then we come on to Sat Chit Ananda. And so number 7 is the point idea. So an idea is a concept of bliss. The 7, Netsak. Thought obviously is going to be 8 because that's Mercury. And Ananda, it says it's self-fulfilled in its complement as determined by 7, 8, or 9 is being. Yes, that. So that's 9 is Yesod. It gets complicated, this stuff. And then we have the 10th position. It's self-fulfilled in its complement as determined by 7, 8, and 9. There is in the 7 palaces, there's this idea that the palaces are joined between 9 and 10. So we're doing a kind of thing that's going on with that as well. So the 10th is on its own, but also we know that these 9 Sephiroths are also included within Kether as well. And then he says, it will be seen from the above that by the means of these 10 positive numbers, but not by any lesser number, one could arrive at a positive description of any given object or idea. There's this great thing in Vedantic philosophy of being able to describe anything from a set of axioms or propositions, which is essentially what he's doing there. So one way of looking at all of this is that you define the full card by going through all these 13, because there's 13 here, you see. The top 3 plus the 10 is 13, which is the number of unity. Yuchad. So we're back into the system, and of course the Yuchad is the part of the high priestess between Kether and Tipareth as well. So essentially the Naples arrangement is an arrangement of 13 and not 10. Even though he calls it in terms of these 10 numbers. It'd be a bit tedious, but you should be able to write each tarot card in terms of those 13 points. I expect you have to have done all them by next week, Bart.
Oh yeah, that should be interesting. And then we'll start about the element spirits. Because once you start looking at the element spirits, this is a very mysterious element there.
Well, it doesn't exist, does it? It's spirit is. Then we're actually talking about the aces and this idea of the 10th, and because Malkuth is in Kether, so then you have the 4 elements in balance, create spirit as well.
And the double function of the AION as well.
Yes.
Yes, I can't. I'm not. To be really honest, it leaves me a bit unsatisfied. How do you say? I'm not happy with the answers that you get.
Well, the problem is, as always, is in the classification of things, isn't it? It's like a duck-billed platypus. It doesn't fit any of the normal. You know, is it a bird? Is it a mammal? It's a bird, but it lays eggs, or I can't remember.
It looks like the beak's been glued on afterwards.
Yeah. It's a bit of a it's a bit like a camel designed by a committee, isn't it? That was the
it does. It looks like they said, oh, let's make a system that has all the elements in it, and then all of a sudden they're going, oh bloody hell, we forgot Earth. Let's stick it at the bottom there.
Yeah.
Oh bloody hell, now we forgot Spirit as well.
Yeah. Well, he clearly he wasn't satisfied with a Kabbalistic description of this given of the 10 Sephiroths in the Tree of Life. And he wanted to take it further, but he also wanted to relate it to geometry. And of course, by geometry, you're taking it back to the Greek systems, aren't you? You're bringing in those things as well.
He also brought...
And also we're talking in terms of numbers and the power of numbers, you know, the fact that, you know, you can't multiply 0 because you get infinity or divide or whatever. So you need 0 to have to be an actual number in order to things. And isn't it interesting that 61, he says, you know, 6 is the point now self-conscious because it is able to define itself in terms of above. And 6 and 1 is Tipareth and 1 is Kether. So this is so 61 in essence contains everything between Kether and Tipareth.
And as the high priestess. As the high priestess.
The high priestess is 13. We're back into unity in the fact that there are 6 13 to 78.
Yeah, and she's going from Tipareth to
yes.
Kether.
She has she goes through the abyss. And then you have Amen as well. So we have IAO at the top. And then we have Amen, which is the God. And AIN O all we can say is Amen, what we say at the end of our Christian prayers. And of course, Amen is the end of the Tower invocation as well. So all of these kind of ideas of IAO and Amen, and HIU is light basically, because it's to do with the sun, isn't it? So you've got the in essence of the sun in there. So we could actually break down
Amen
probably in terms of what's in here as well.
Yeah, Amen, wasn't he also a solar god?
Can't remember, but he's you know, Amen is number 91, which is a vibration of 6 to 1, of course, isn't it? In many respects, he goes all to 1. But it's the 91st chapter of the Book of Lies as well, you see. So that's the last chapter is Amen. So there we are, ladies and gentlemen. There is, you know, with these 2 chapters, we've covered the Naples Arrangement and given you a hint as to how Crowley applied that to a lot of his work and things. And you can see echoes. Some of the things I talked about, Adam and Eve, as, you know, the point needing another point in order to define itself, but you can't tell which is which. Eve famously came from a rib of Adam. So she wasn't going to be that different anyway to start with, was she? So that's lovers.
Yeah. It's not directly related to the tarot, but it is very fundamental, I find.
It is, because this is a more sophisticated way of understanding the Tree of Life that you can do conceptually. You don't need to have gone through the Tree of Life the way they do in the rituals of the Golden Dawn and everywhere else. This can be done, you know, just by understanding. We know what a point, and, you know, we might better define what a point is. And unless you've done geometry at 14 or something, you know, point and line and triangle, they're all kind of things. And just by way of the thing, of course, is that in geometry, in all angles were triangulated up to 180 on a flat surface. But when it's curved, you go into projective synthetic geometry because the angles of the triangle are now less than 180. So we have that projective geometry on the High Priestess and a number of the other cards as well.
Well, wouldn't that be a good subject, actually, for the projective synthetic?
Yeah, we can do that. We can do, yes, that's another one. Add it to the list, Bart.
Yes,
of
now
all the
the
other
thing
ones
is,
that we said we do and we haven't.
I've done a little bit of inquiring already, you know, because I'm studying a lot of geometry lately, and bloody, it's when you first read about it, it doesn't sound too difficult.
It is.
But when you start checking it out, it's very difficult, eh? Especially because it breaks with all the laws of mathematics as we know it.
No, not necessarily. I don't know. I mean, it's still geometry.
It's non-Euclidean mathematics, and our mathematics that we use is Euclidean, yes. Which means we follow the axioms of Euclides.
Yes.
But synthetic projective geometry breaks with those things. So which means
it's also a subsystem of Reimannian geometry as well.
Yeah, it's just not logic.
You had to do Riemann. Riemann is actually mentioned in the star card, and he's the one that defined this curvature of space, which of course defines the curvature of space, and it's actually one of the most fundamental systems of mathematics, because it's all to do with prime numbers as well. And if you can prove Reimannian geometry is wrong, then our systems of encryption that we use for our credit cards collapse in a heap. Really, it's, you know, your Bartley card, your credit cards will not work if Reimannian geometry is broken.
But,
and they're trying to break it.
But because a lot of our way of thinking mathematically is just based on consensus. We're not aware.
No, we're not.
But
we don't. You know, who understands cryptography? You know, it's. But we have it. You know, it's.
And it's something when you read about the occult, cryptography was a big thing in the occult because they all wanted to hide their writings and all, because they would burn you at the stake for it at the time.
Yeah.
So you see a lot of secret alphabets and all these things.
So yes, absolutely. So this is relevant to our, using our credit cards. Is all of this is within what we're talking about, but this is mostly done on the plane service. But of course, Rudolf Steiner developed the spiritual form of Reimannian geometry, and called it projective synthetic geometry. I think there's 3 different flavors of this kind of thing. There's the one the mathematician uses, which is Bernhard Riemann. There's lots of videos on that on YouTube and things you can look at. So, but I mean, here at the moment we are doing a plane surface, but it's not a plane surface.
It's very comparable.
We put parabolas and things around the N, the N-soft, and the N-soft 4 as well.
I think I can clearly see people say, like, what is the connection with the Thoth tarot and projective synthetic geometry?
He devoted that number of pages onto the subject in there.
But it is what it is if you think you understand it, then you're wrong.
You're wrong.
You're wrong, yeah. You're wrong. If you think you understand it, it means you don't get it.
Exactly. So hopefully, we've added some light into your life on the subject. It is complicated, but I mean, when we do 3 card readings in these videos, we take the 3 cards and then we interpret them. We don't look at the pictures, we just know what they are, and then we come up with the 4th meaning, which is a manifestation of those 3 cards. And because in essence, the 3 cards are the same. That's why we don't bother too much about meanings and stuff. We know which one is which, and they become that point, which is the 4th point, which is a manifestation into matter, into Malka. And that's the oracle talking, and those are the things that we say. So it's all to do with tarot. This is all in the Book of Thoth. Hopefully you can read it yourself now and refer back to this and see where we got it wrong, because I'm sure we've done quite a few. We took some wrong turnings somewhere in all of this. It's going to stay in because it'd be too tedious to remove it. So, these are all work in progress. You've got to push the boundaries. You've got to explore, go with a fall and just bang into something different. So there we are. So what's the next subject, Bart?
Well, synthetic projective geometry.
Yes, that one.
Or you want or Choronzon is also one that's already passed.
You want to say that for Graham as well.
Yeah, it is true that.
Yes, good, Graham. Yeah, we've got the videos of the abracadabra to come out as well, so they're interesting. They kind of go into some really deep stuff as well. You see, so Crowley's giving away the secrets of the deep systems of knowledge and magic, actually in the Naples Arrangement, if you know how to read it. We'll leave that to you to work out. Until next time, I think we're done. Good night.
Good night.